were met in closed session. No action was taken. In regards to resolution number 8219-2, RA 1819-2. We have to do something more than just convene.
You need to, a motion for the
Yeah.
recommendation.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Pope. And a roll call vote. Dr. Lee? Dr. Lee?
I'm sorry, we're getting an echo here.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're voting on the resolution for, that was discussed in closed session, resolution RA 1819-2. Reinstatement.
Aye.
There we go. Mr. Bruno?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
And aye. Chair votes aye. So I will try to just speak very slowly. I don't know what else to do, so apologies for that echo. All right, if we could go ahead and have the flag salute.
Please rise. Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In recognition of this freedom of speech board business agenda item, I just want to welcome all and note that participating in the Pledge of Allegiance is not a requirement to participate in the business of this board. And if you do not participate in the Pledge of Allegiance for religious, political, social, or personal reasons, you are most welcome here as an equal participant in the business of this public school board.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Okay, apparently I was supposed to do the.
Kelly, can we take
Point it out.
2 seconds? There we go. There we go.
And it was just on your screen, it's still so fine.
I lost you guys.
Okay, item number 8, do we have a motion to approve the adoption of the agenda?
I would like to pull number 27 from the consent agenda, please, for clarification.
Which one?
27?
And I would like to pull items 1 and 2 from the consent agenda for further discussion.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve as amended?
On motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Pope. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. And roll call vote, Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
sorry, Mrs. Pope,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The agenda has been adopted. Moving on to item number 9, organizational reports. We have Vanessa Mason for CUTA. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. CUTA just had our first rep council meeting of the 2022 school year. There was a lot to go over. Biggest issue that we've had at the sites in terms of facility usage is our Wi-Fi connectivity issue, which I've already spoken to Scott, and he's already on top of that with our facilities groups. And then of course, lots of questions about COVID and testing and quarantine, because it's just so cut and dry. All of the guidelines and rules are so easy to follow. So one other concern outside of COVID and the confusion about that is just teachers being notified when a student is going on quarantine, for how long, when are they expected back in attendance on campus, just to make sure that we don't have students in our classrooms that shouldn't be there. So CUTA is working with the district, and we're working on a letter that can go out to teachers on a case-by-case basis as needed, notifying that, say, Mrs. Pope is not allowed in class for until at least this date, if not more, based on whatever circumstances. So we're working in conjunction with the district to get that done. And then the other concern we have is just some of our phone systems aren't necessarily working. We're not we have a lot of new administrators in the district, so maybe they need a training on how to use the phone systems, on how to access the speakers on the overhead, so we can make announcements. Just general, just logistics when you come back after a year and a half of really not being on campus, and we kind of all forget what was life like before.
Was that site-wide, each site, or just? a few sites?
Specifically Riles and Dudley, and NCHS, there are some rooms that do not have phones in them, or where the phone is located, there's not a wire to plug it into, or I'm not quite sure.
So we, just so the board knows, we are in working with that. There's a way through the new phone system that did come in over the year. So we are working through kinks, having more people on it, but there's a way we can push messages through all speakers at the same time, actually raise the volume. So if something did happen, so I know Mr. Putnam and our staff has been working on that. So we'll communicate that out to staff once we get that process in place.
Thank you. And then more specifically, McClellan High School does not have a nurse's aide, or what are we calling them? Health tech. I'm not sure, Mr. Jordan. They felt like they maybe should be sharing with another school site so that they can have the continuous monitoring based on the 10-day cohort quarantines, and then as well as any staff who'd like to be tested.
And just to answer that too, so we have had an issue with some of even our health techs going out and filling it. So we're actually doubling our efforts to have extra staff, but we are assigning them to individual sites, but they work at every site. Today we had a big need for some testing at the high school. Two staff members went over there. So while they're stationed there, it will, it depends on what the need is, but we have a plan actually to try and double our efforts, because the contact tracing, the quarantining is taking more time than one person could probably handle even at each site.
And then I have a kudos to send out to McClellan High School's new custodian, Dennis Stevens, who apparently took it upon himself to wash the windows of a preschool teacher whose window was terribly dirty and he just couldn't take it. And so he washed her window for her. And I just love how this district chips in together and always says things like little things that just make your day. So everybody at our meeting had to say kudos to Dennis Stevens at McClellan. And we appreciate all the little efforts that everybody's doing to chip in to survive the first 10 days. There's 170 to go. Any questions for me?
Yes.
Online, Mr. Bruno or Dr. Lee? Okay, thank you.
No questions, but thank you.
Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa.
All right, moving on to CSEA, do we have a representative
She's online.
here? Hello, Marie.
Hello.
Lake Tahoe, maybe.
It could be.
There's no smoke.
There's no smoke, right? So it must be out of California. Just wanted to welcome everybody back. I know it's been kind of a crazy time of getting back, and it just seems like school has been going on for more than just a couple weeks, but it's been good. It's good to be back, and it's good to be working together to solve new situations and new challenges that we have. I did want to let the board know that the chapter will be bringing forward the reduction of the accounts payable position to our membership. Again, there's been a revision to our tentative agreement from last May, and we are bringing that to the membership this week for a vote for ratification. Instead of reducing hours per se, it's a reduction in days, so that it's still an 8-hour position, just fewer days. And so we're going to be bringing that forward to the membership for a ratification. And we are also bringing forward the MOU for the bus driver incentive. I know that it's been hard to fill those bus driver positions. And so each year for the last few years, we have agreed to an incentive for new bus drivers for after I believe it's a 6-month period, and then a year and a half, they would have an incentive for staying with the district. And find that again this year, and we'll be bringing that to the membership for a ratification, as well as the Michaels transportation. Since we do not have a full staff of bus drivers, the district has needed to have Michael's Transportation do some bus driving for us. That is at an incredible cost, but it is necessary in order to get our students to and from school. So we have agreed to the use of an outside agency to help us drive while we're still trying to fill those positions. And so that's been an agreement we have made over the last few years as well to, it's not really, it's contracting out, but we've agreed to it because it's something that is critical for the needs of our students. And while we're trying to get new bus drivers trained. I also wanted to do a shout out for Mr. Grimes and Mr. Putnam. We've had some issues with some of the protective barriers or partitions at some of the school sites in the libraries, trying to get those up and running for those who feel that they need that for extra special protection rather than face-to-face, up close and personal with students sometimes in the libraries. So the two gentlemen stepped up today and are pursuing options of how to get those partitions installed where necessary. And I just wanted to thank them for valuing people no matter what their position is, no matter what their classification is, but that if there's a need to protect someone, if there's a need to provide extra protection, that they're stepping up to do that. So I just wanted to thank you for that extra effort. I know there's a lot of hands out saying, what about me right now? But I do appreciate that effort to, in good faith, take care of the people that are up close and personal with these students. So thank you. And again, welcome back, and looking forward to a good year.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Marie.
I do have one question in regards to the bus drivers, and I probably have asked this question every year for 11 years now, but is this something we need to look at the salary scale again? Or is it a training issue? Is it just a workforce?
It's a workforce issue nationwide. We have looked and updated ours. We also offer the incentive. But in fact, I was going to forward you guys today an article from, I can't remember which state, but it's nationwide that the shortage is happening. Even our Michael's transportation company that we contract with, they can't get drivers.
What about working with maybe some driving schools, truck driving schools, and just seeing if
And Cindy, the other thing, they're also hurting for drivers right now too. So Cindy, one of the things that our transportation department does really well is they offer trainings, and we offer trainings, and like we just hired 2, and I think we have 2 more in the mix. So I think we're in good shape.
Okay,
Yeah,
and we keep them once we train them.
well, that's
That's
what that
what we work
incentive
on
is
it, yeah.
for. What were you gonna say, Mr. Grimes? I'm sorry.
Well, I think Scott covered it. We
Okay.
have 2 coming on in the next week. We have 2 others in training. We lost one actually to the teaching force because he got his credential and I know, and so, you know, that's a good thing.
I mean, who wants to be a teacher instead of a bus driver?
And then we actually have one on an extended COVID leave right now and another one out with a positive COVID. So COVID has hit us like everywhere else too. So that's why it's been extremely difficult lately, but these bus drivers and the whole transportation department deserves a lot of kudos because they have not complained once. They are covering each other's routes. They're not always getting where they need to on time. They're doing their very best. They're cooperating. They've got a good sense of morale in there right now, and they're doing their utmost to meet the needs that they can. So
And there's nothing we can do to put a shield up for them, is there?
but
No,
there are a lot of protections for those bus drivers for same as in the classrooms. Yeah.
Is there?
Okay, great, thank you. So any other questions for Ms. Huggins? Right, and then we will move on
Oh, you
to
look nice and suntanned.
to item number, well, I wrote up the top of it, item number 10, committee updates, and this, I believe, is Mr. Putnam's first facilities update. Welcome.
Good evening, all. All right, this has been a kind of a whirlwind summer so far. Coming on board, downloading as much information from Mr. Deason as possible, then getting in and going forward with the crew. The maintenance department is a little shorthanded. We have one who is kind of part-time due to family matters, so he is coming in when he can. Then we have the one position that we're truly short because one of the maintenance departments, Kevin Coons, was elevated up to supervisor. So right now Kevin's kind of wearing two hats, still going out helping to do maintenance work and still supervising. So he's helping along in that. We have one in-house person who's applied, so we will be conducting an interview with them and then take that from there. But then moving on to all of our sites. So we've had a lot of activity at all the sites. So I'm just going to start going down at the different sites with what we've had. So at North Country, we did a floor and then floor repair in Cypress 3, and then we also recarpeted that room. That room also received a new or an update on their mini split system. That one had failed, the old one failed. We have a new one. There will be other work coming forward next year that will also replace the HVAC systems at North Country as well as at Center High School. We have the playground, the play equipment, ran into some unforeseen circumstances underneath all the bark that was in place. But they have moved through, and I was over there at 4:30 this afternoon, and they're probably at about 90% of having the softball material back in. So probably by the end of the week, with finishing up that, pulling out the temporary fencing, we should have that up and going for the students to be able to start using that area. Also at North Country, we had a contractor come out and take care of the all the fascia we had with the wood. We had a lot of dry rot, had that repaired, and then we have actually covered that with metal flashing. So that way it will limit down, they'll cut out having any of those kind of items. Moving on to Oak Hill, the kinder classrooms that project is 99% complete. We are just waiting for the rolling gate to come back from the powder coaters. It's another one of those labor shortage issues and everything else and how orders go in, but all the fencing is up other than the rolling gate. So we still have temporary fencing, keeping the school site secure. We have some furniture that was delivered that was damaged. That furniture is being replaced Friday. They'll be coming in and replacing all the stuff that we had noted that was damaged. And then we've just done some little just some of the little sprucing up, adding some bark in locations around the campus, painting some curbs, helping to identify for parents student drop-off zones. So we have a fresh yellow painted curb right in front of the office going up past the MP room. That way it helps to keep people remembering this is for buses and for drop-off in and out. Moving on to Spinelli, we raised out portable 11, and that's going to be the modular that will be holding the Head Start program. So we raised that up, put new skirting down below, raised up the electrical panel, the Christie box that was in the ground, smoothed all that out. That is all ready to go for the Head Start. They just have to do some of their stuff with fencing that they need to have for their play area in the back. Spinelli also had their parking lot sealed and striped. So it's got a nice fresh look onto that. Dudley, we sealed and striped the parking lot there. And then we have everything ready in room 10 for Head Start to move in, room 10 at Dudley. Over at McClellan, they had some chair racks that need to be fixed. We got those welded up for the site. We've also identified a couple major irrigation leaks, had those dug up, identified, repaired. One of them, we still have to just do the backfill. We had to wait for special Christie boxes to come in so we could set that back in. So we'll be backfilling and finishing that up this week. We also had some roof repairs on the A and B wings. That site has a single ply roof, and just the elements in California with mostly sun just wreaks havoc on those single ply roofs. So we went in, we've done repairs on those. So when the rains do come back, we won't be having leaks there. And then finally, Center High School. So right after we had the board meeting in June, we had a fire out there at Center High School. We had kids come on and we had fireworks. We've actually found 3 of the fireworks that were not deployed. So we found those. Thankfully, the only thing we lost were some trees. No damage to any of the buildings, so nobody was hurt. So that was a positive for us on that.
Were they able to locate the lovely little children who did this? I know they were asking for video of it.
There wasn't a follow-up, so I don't think so, but.
Yeah, there were some names that were mentioned, but only first names. And the videos, even from, Facebook, TikTok, all that, nothing was clear enough to identify who any of these people were who did that. But besides that, at Center High School, we also installed carpet in rooms 203, 701, 5, 906, 907, and 212. And then we've also done roof repairs on rooms 903 and 904. And then we've identified some other stuff in doing our walks on that. We've identified some other roofs that we may have to do some future repairs on. And then here at Wilson C. Riles, we've got some stairs that we will be working on, but we will do that coming in October when we have the break, so that way we don't interfere with anything with students. And then we had a bunch of projectors that they needed to be installed. I believe we have everything except maybe one that has not been installed yet. That is your wrap up.
I'm busy.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do have a couple. In regards to McClellan at the preschool, what is the solution on the back gate? Did you add a gate?
We are going to be adding a gate. We are asking Real Wind Defense to come out. We're going to see if they can fabricate up one for us where there used to be a gate and things have been closed off. We are going to open that panel up and have a custom gate done just out of chain link or whatever, but because it's an odd size, you need to fab it up. It's not that expensive for them to do it. But if we were to go to Home Depot or Lowe's to try and get a gate, we'd have to build up on either side to make that work. We'd rather have something that is a more suitable without having to add more wood and make the opening smaller. This way we can still keep the integrity of that almost 5-foot opening then, and then we'd have that gate there for them.
So is it going to lock by a push bar or how?
No, it'll just be, all that there's going to be is there is a, it's like a horseshoe latch. So even if there's not a lot of skill, so even young kids who are trying to get their fine motor skills going, from what I understand, the old one had like a carabiner or something like it, and that is, no, this will just have a simple hoop latch that you just lift up. We'll have it wide enough to where it's easy for anybody, and that's all that it is. It's just lift up and then the gate goes out.
Okay, and then in regards to the preschool again, the front fencing, how are you going to resolve that? Or are you going to keep it that meshy fencing that you have?
We are still trying to figure out which fence to go with that, because with everything going also with potential widening of Watt Avenue, I'm trying to just get the whole grasp of how long that is going to be, where we're at. And so at minimum, we could just go in, lag into the existing concrete sidewalk and create fencing on there, which is a relatively inexpensive way to put in a permanent type fence instead of just the temporary orange fencing. Or I think it's white fencing that we got
What was
there.
the last we heard about them widening what happened?
So I think it's moving a lot faster than originally because you're seeing PFE now, and as that goes down, it's coming. We don't have an exact date, but they've been out surveying it. I've seen it multiple times out there doing it, so.
And from what I've heard is that the bridge is under environmental evaluation right now from the county. So that's as soon as they have basically their environmental impact report done with the bridge, then that project will probably accelerate.
Two questions.
Yes.
The alarm at the annex, is that, will be able to locate the fault? I know that it's been going off repeatedly. The fire alarm at the annex?
Yeah, we went out there, there was one bad detector, and we've had IFS was out there, and they had a bad detector that they identified, and then we did not find anything else, and since that one, we have not had any other alarms.
I was there yesterday morning around 11:30 and it was going off. So I know that those things can be like ghosts. You go
Yeah.
there and it works perfectly and you walk away and it goes off. So I just was curious if they.
Yeah, I think on that one, that was not the alarm going off, that was a trouble from what I was informed. And so what will happen sometimes with the trouble is these alarms, especially fire alarms, they call out at random times just to touch base with home. And if they don't make that connection because of phone line issue or whatever, then they'll report back a trouble. And it's kind of a default safety mechanism. So that way it's saying, hey, you need to look, do we have another trouble? So we could have had a trouble maybe sometime in the middle of the night. And then
It continues to.
it'll continue and then you go in and clear. And then if your phone lines clear back up, then you don't have that. And I have not had any other reports in regards to that.
And then the other question I had was about new construction, what the status is on some of our new sites.
We are still trying to get the purchase of the land. So next week, our attorney, David
Which
Saldani,
site is this one? This is Sierra Vista.
There's only one site that we're.
Sierra Vista. Sierra Vista.
for Sierra Vista Exports. And so David Saldani, our attorney, is meeting with representatives from JMC Homes next Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we are hoping we will have a much clearer picture as to where we are at in that process.
So Kelly, just so you were, the GMP has been created. We are working on the property. We're still targeting that 2023 August for the opening. So we'd still be on schedule for that, but nothing has really transpired over summer other than more planning. They're looking at ways to keep the school as a star, but also look at what ways they can reduce some costs because construction costs right now are off the charts,
Along with it.
off the charts.
That's it. Any other questions?
Anybody else have any other questions? All right, thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Mr. Putnam. All right, moving on. I lost my place again. To reports and presentations, don't blink. Mr. Jordan. My favorite report.
And just real quick, that was the panel going off in the annex. We had no problems today. So
Cool.
it's all good. Happy to report, there were no Williams complaints last quarter.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. That was a fun one. You have like 7 more minutes. All right, item number 12, comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. And I do believe we have a couple of items, notes. Were you guys filling out some comments regarding items not on the agenda, or was it for comments on items that are on the agenda?
It's busy.
Get those cards ready when you have them ready to go.
For items not on the agenda.
For items not on the agenda, so yours is, okay, you have it, okay, great. Do we have any online comments for items not on the agenda? Great, thank you.
Regarding staff vaccination, will the district be accepting medical or religious exemptions for the COVID-19 vaccination mandates? Also, why are we only testing students/staff who have not been vaccinated when there have been multiple breakthrough cases and the vaccinated can still spread the virus? Don't we have the obligation to test both, since both can spread the virus? And it's from, Roro.
And just so the board's aware, we will test any student or staff member that requests it, or if they're on the modified quarantine. So I'm not sure if that's just misinformation, but I'm looking at Mike and Mr. Jordan, or Mr. Grimes, but the testing, we've been testing staff, we've been testing vaccinated, unvaccinated. And as far as the mandate, the religious exemption, there is no mandate to get vaccinated. There is mandate right now to tell who is vaccinated. And then if not, we'll go ahead and do the testing. We hope to roll that out by Friday, and then we'll give time for staff to submit their verification. If verification is not given by that date, then we will go ahead and they schedule them for a weekly test as the law.
I think what that person was trying to say is that we should be testing even those that are vaccinated. So there's no difference in whether or not you're vaccinated.
Oh, okay.
So when we get to the masking conversation, I do have some information specifically about CDC guidelines that talks to that. So that can be discussed when we're talking about masks, right? I mean, yeah.
I just have a clarification question for Scott. Does our district allow medical and religious exemptions to any vaccination requirements at this time?
So, and I'm gonna look to Mr. Grimes, and that, my understanding would be is, yes, you don't have to be vaccinated, you just have to share your status with us. If you are not if you do not provide verification, then you would be in the testing cycle. So I guess you could say, yes, we are. You do not have to submit anything. We're not requiring you to submit. If you choose not to submit a vaccination, then you're okay.
Yes, that's correct. And then in addition, if a person has been exposed, say a staff member has been exposed to close contact, then they have a couple of options. If they have been vaccinated, they do not need to quarantine. But if they have not been vaccinated, then they would need to quarantine. So even if they had an exemption, they would still need to quarantine for the usually 10 days if they've been exposed.
Also,
And that's paid time off, right?
There is a state legislation that goes through September, that allows up to 10 days or 2 weeks at their regular number of hours per day for purposes of COVID. It outlines the specifics in the law and the legislation. So if they have not used that, and if it is for one of the qualifying reasons, caring for a family member, being on a mandatory quarantine, being positive themselves with COVID, for those, they have up to 10 days of leave that is fully paid, that does not come out of their sick leave. It's not per instance, it's accumulative.
So what if they call it every 10 days?
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt here. So we are on public comment on items that are not agendized. So we need to move forward without commenting on these items. We will have opportunity to discuss more COVID-related items during the masking conversation. Sorry.
Okay. Thanks.
Carol, I think they have items not on the agenda. Okay.
Well, do you have a?
I have questions.
Here's what it.
Latoya Jenkins.
Yes,
Thank you.
hello. So I have a few questions. My first question is, how are we going to safely keep these schools open with all these new cases that's coming of us in our schools? Noticing that Center High has 6 new cases, Arkadelli has 4, like they just keep rising. So how are we gonna safely keep these schools open?
So just so you understand, we are bound by the Brown Act, which requires us to listen to public comment. And we are listening, but we are not allowed to comment or engage in conversation because the item has not been agendized. So we may decide that we would bring this back to a future agenda so that all of the public would be able to discuss that item.
Or she could just talk to Mr. Later.
And
Or
also,
you can talk to
we
Mr.
can
Miller.
always, I know you well, we can chat too, but obviously that's a concern of ours, and we continue to want to follow all protocols that are given. And we actually are trying to go a little bit beyond what's even out there and be extra cautious. So we are working on that. So, and if you ever have questions, call myself, Mr. Grimes, Mr. Jordan. We'd be happy to talk with you and assure you what we're doing.
But it's very important that you come and express to us, even though we can't comment, so we know what you're feeling.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. I also have a number of things to discuss when we talk about the masking that might help answer some of the questions.
So like some of the kids are at school are not wearing masks at school. So you can go on campus and see multiple kids, including teachers, not wearing these masks on campus. So that makes that a big issue right there for me.
And right now, the masking is indoors, so you might see students coming to and from on the outside of school. But certainly that's something we work with our staff to encourage while they're in the schools indoors. So absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. And we have Ibukan Ambulu. I'm sorry if I just murdered your name.
Hi, I'm Ethan Hambaloo, and my question was that I'm very concerned about the schools staying open because they have to close suddenly and everything, and I just want to make sure that my daughter gets a quality education. I can't do night school with her. You know, I'm a single mom, I work a full job. She went to multiple daycares last year. The daycares are only going to do so much, you know, in terms of they'll log them onto Zoom, but they're not going to make sure that they're doing the work. But even like, she's a first grader right now, so for kindergarten, she was, you know, supposed to learn her sight words, learning how to read and everything. Is I really feel like if the school's closing in, that she's gonna be disadvantaged and she's not going to get a quality elementary education, that she's gonna fall behind due to schools being closed. And it's gonna be my fault for not being able to take off work to make sure that she gets educated, because I have to work to provide for us. So I wanna know, for people who aren't in two-person households, what, like, they're like, if that happens, I know that you guys have a contingency plan, I'm saying that didn't work. You know, it was her kindergarten year, now it's her first grade year, and if she's out of school for first grade, she's not gonna know anything for second grade, and she's going to be behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, Carol, do we have more comments on items not related, not on the agenda? No, great.
Scott, can you get her name and contact her?
I have the cards right here. Okay, moving on to item number 13, board and superintendent reports. Let's do it first.
Would you like to? Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna take off my mask. Before I start, would it be possible to get some app spray before the next board meeting, because this board table's filled with gnats.
Kill them too.
Yeah. So just, that's it, thank you. Hello, and welcome back, everybody. Well, we were hoping to have some sort of normalcy for the start of the school year, but COVID threw us a curveball. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask, open, don't open, social distance or not. But whatever we chose, one thing is abundantly clear, and we do not want a repeat of last year. We have to be mindful of the safety protocols we have in place. It is vital to the safety of our students, staff, and faculty. The creation of the reopening plan was a great success, which also aligns the guidelines of health and safety, academics, social and emotional learning, and community outreach. There has been challenges and some stresses along with this. But one thing the pandemic taught us is that we work together as a team, and communication is very important. And doing so, that is better than the daily drama that we have. And we also have also helps with the what ifs, which is a huge thing as well. I am blessed to be in the district where staff and faculty and administration try to make the education of our students the best possible and provide opportunity for success for one and all. So again, I want to say thank you. Oh, the other thing I want to say, our job is to make sure that our classrooms, our school, and our district remain open. That's our job, and that's what we are focusing on right now. So thank you, one and all, for your help. Thank you for being you, and welcome back.
Thanks. Well, Mr. Bruno, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. First, I'd like to say welcome back, everyone. I would love to have been there in person, but as most of you know, and to let the public know, I'm currently at home because my entire household has tested positive for COVID. Most of us are getting over the symptoms, but it has been really rough. And just to kind of clarify a couple things, I don't have the best Wi-Fi at the moment, so I may turn my camera off from time to time if things start freezing up, but I am still paying attention. And if you see me looking off to the side of my screen here, I'm just looking at other screens where I have the agenda up and everything. Please know I am still paying full attention to what's going on. And just to keep this really brief, the other thing that I want to bring up, I'm very concerned about some stuff that's been happening in our community and involving our students lately, and that is the shootings that have happened recently. Please, everyone, just stay safe, and let's try to teach the kids, to stay safe and to make good choices. And I'm really sorry for everyone that's been involved with this, and I hope to see things return to a normal state soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Dr. Lee?
Yes, okay, so I just want to welcome everyone, as the previous trustees have, to the 2021-2022 school year. And I want to thank all of the staff and teachers who are working hard to ensure that we have school sites that are aligned with our safety guidelines, which are outlined in our playbook. And I also want to thank the families for their patience and flexibility. It's already shaping up to be a most interesting year as we're continuing to navigate a global pandemic. We've been in this pandemic since I started on this board. It hasn't let up yet. We've seen a wide variety of responses to it, but it's still here. And I really, as we see these spikes in cases in our community and among children in particular rising, I really want to send my condolences and my thoughts to members of the center family who have been affected by this pandemic, our trustee Bruno included. And I want to thank all of our certificated and classified staff for doing everything we can to make sure that all of our students are safe and well. In addition to COVID, we have wildfires contributing to poor air quality right now. And so please try to stay indoors. To those of us who've been affected by the tragedies of these fires or the pandemic, our thoughts are with you. And to those lucky winners of the All Staff Day contest, here's to hoping that those Starbucks cards give you a little bit of pep in your step at the start of this new year. And I also want to welcome all of our new students. Our campuses are open. This is great. Things do look different, and we're all adjusting to those differences. I just also want to note that our district has a robust independent study option, and it is available to students. We've seen enrollment in that program triple, I think, for this academic year. And our independent study students are an important part of our center family too. So I really do welcome feedback about the virtual back to school nights. And for those families that are in that option, please don't hesitate to let me or other members of our board know how things are going for you, good or bad. We want to make sure that you're having access to a quality program in the independent study. And then two, just finally noting, one of my responsibilities as a board member is to engage in professional development to enhance my knowledge and skills. And so the amount of information I've had to kind of navigate as we're dealing with the different changing mandates and guidelines and recommendations from all the different levels has been tremendous. So I just want to acknowledge that and acknowledge the staff, because they're also engaging with all of that information and trying to make sense of it and make it make sense for everyone else. And so thank you to everyone who's, come with new information to me, with concerns, and for communicating with our superintendent, with our local principals, as you need to. And also, I do want to note that in addition to all the things teachers are facing, the wildfires, the pandemic, all of these things, we're also in the middle of a culture war related to teaching for diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And this is something I've worked on for a large portion of my life, and it's something that's very personal and professionally interesting to me. And so I've gone to a number of meetings to become informed. What is all the hubbub about? What are these parent protests at school board meetings? And I've even received questions about our curriculum. And I just want to address questions about whether we're teaching wokeism, critical race, anti-race ideologies, and all of those kinds of things. I've gone to a number of meetings, from the Heritage Foundation to the Abolitionist Teaching Network, to learn about these different perspectives and issues. And I know that it's very confusing for everyone to keep track of all the different things that are swirling and happening. And I want to thank you for doing all you have done and that you continue to do to make our schools places where we can celebrate our differences and our commonalities as human beings. And I think a commitment to that is really going to be what helps us to discover that we have so much more in common than we think. So thanks to everyone again. Special shout out to Heather Woods at Center High School, who's our Teacher of the Year. Thank you, enjoy that recognition. I have my office hours, welcome to the community. Monday, September 6th is the next one. You can access the link on Zoom. I welcome you to drop in anytime between 4 and 5, short or long, and looking forward to connecting with you all, and just be safe and be well.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. And Mrs. Anderson.
I want to say welcome back.
Should I took up on the mic?
Oh, welcome back. And I wanted to recognize that one of our staff did lose his home, unfortunately.
The fires?
Yes, Mr. French. So if there's anything we need or anything we can do, please let us know how that goes. Everybody has said everything there is to say, except for I am truly proud of this district, every single person that works in this district, from custodial staff through, and there has not been any quarreling or backstabbing or anything like that. I mean, it's just they've all pulled together and gotten us through it any way that they could, with self-sacrifice anytime they needed it. And it's truly amazing to watch this district walk through things like that. They've done a great job, a fantastic job, and our kids benefit from that. They may not have kids in the district, they may live in a totally different district, but they're here putting in the hours for our kids. And I'm so proud of that, so thankful for that. Opening day at the elementaries, it was so neat to go and watch those, not only just the kids, the families coming and the happy expressions and bouncing back to school. I mean, those kids were thrilled to be back in school, and the families were thrilled to have them there. So whatever we need to do to just try to keep those kids back in and learning. And I know there's going to be some problems with kids falling behind that year that they were off, but we've got help out there. We're going to get those kids back up to where they need to be. As parents, if you see them having problems, let somebody know. We can find some help for them, bring them back in. Other than that, Scott, you've done a wonderful job. My hat's off to you. I don't regret for a second hiring you as superintendent. You've just been exemplary. You've led the way, and you've got a wonderful crew behind you. Thank you, for all of you. every single day, I thank you for doing the job that you do.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. I'm going to follow that. I'll let Scott get the last one.
I had to follow the others.
That's true. So I just wanted to say a few things about COVID. I know that we are going to be talking about it in regards to masking in a little bit, but you know, I think it's been very clearly stated from the president to the CDC, to the governor, to CDPH, to the Department of Education, the board, you know, the county board of supervisors, everyone all the way down the line, it's very clear that students need to be in school, period. In person, in school. The reason we were closed last year is because we were not prepared to have students in school in the middle of a pandemic. We've made those arrangements. We've set up the protocols. We've established the guidelines. We've made the safety protocols available and mandated. The PPE, the testing, everything is in place now to keep people safe. We just have to follow the guidance. If we don't follow the guidance, then not only is it our own fault, but as a district, it's our fault and we are liable. So I just want to make, I'm very concerned to hear that there are students not wearing masks. Hopefully that was only outdoors. So definitely a concern for me that we are following every protocol, and I have a whole bunch of data about what the CDC guidelines are now, which includes potentially adding in testing of non-vaccinated employees based on the case rates, positivity, and transmissible rates in the community. So it's definitely something they're recommending, but it's not a mandate, so we'll take that under advisement. I had the opportunity to go over to the Annex yesterday and look at the science books, and it was hilarious because the stack of books was almost as tall as me. And they looked at me and they said, okay, here's the stack of books. I'm like, okay. So I did take some time and look through, you know, tables of contents and some of the graphics and the glossaries and indexes and things like that. And was really impressed with the quality of the science books. Really happy to see things like climate change and population growth and, you know, genetics and just all of the things that, you know, have become controversial at times, but yet are based in scientific fact, and we need to be teaching science the way that science really is. And I'm just so proud of the people who selected these books. I don't know what other books look like, but I liked the ones that I saw. Particularly, I liked the fact that they had information related to what I do at the Department of Public Health, which is, you know, related to social determinants of health, health disparities, equitable outcomes. I was really impressed that that kind of information was in there. Maybe not in those words, but it was definitely talking to those topics, and I was really proud of that. Not proud, I was impressed by that. Okay, and then I wanted to welcome all of our new folks. We have, well, let's see, a lot. We have a lot. So classified employees, we have Kelly Baker retired. Congratulations, Kelly. Mike Hayes retired. Bonnie Shiro retired. So thank you for your service and good luck in your retirement. Promoted, we have Tamara Browning, Maria Esther Cortez Palomino, who's the registrar at Center High. I'm sorry, Tamara is the instructional specialist at North Country. Tracy Edging, school secretary in North Country, and Nikki Hibbert, dispatcher, bus driver and transportation. We have new hires, Abigail Armiente, Shelby Baker, Aaron Durr, Hannah Edwards, Sarah Gonzalez-Haro, Kevin Campillo, something like that, Gurwar Maharaj, Gabriana Martin, Tiffany Morris McHenry, Drake Boyle, Paola Perez, Jack Rettenhouse, Deanna Stelman, sorry. Mariela Silva, Amanda Singh, and Carly Stone. And then in classified, or I'm sorry, in certificated staff, we have Mark Loftus, who retired from Center High School. Again, thank you for your years of service and congratulations. And we have new hires, Jason Tomlinson, Adriana Schroeder, Chelsea Black, Victoria Ferrari, Cheryl Weicker, Genna Georges. Oh, I don't think I got that right. But anyway, Jonathan Fata, Joella Freitas, Ashley Mills, Ariana Barton, Monica Espinoza Gutierrez, Rebecca Harris, Susan Schofield, James Rubel, Mary Perez, Glenn Scott, Brandon Giannettini, Hayden Burdick, Kevin Lucedale, Daxton King, Barbara Reinhardt, James Lockhart. And that's all of the new hires. Welcome. And then we have congratulations to Melissa Tackett Oliver for her promotion. And that is a mouthful. I surely hope that all of these people will continue to stay with this center family because you're going to love it here. Welcome. And then welcome back to the staff, the students, the families, to the new school year. Glad you're all here and hope everything goes well and successful this year. And Mr. Lear, your turn.
Good, and I'm gonna keep mine rather brief, only from the fact that I think you guys echoed what I was going to say as far as the staff. I wanted to just take an opportunity to thank and appreciate all of our staff. Everyone is doing everything they can to make it as safe and successful for our students. And so I kept thinking, you know, I think I actually talked to Miss Woods and Miss Vanessa over there the other day, and it's like, we're all just beat. You know, we're all giving 100%. And today is the reason I realized why we all do it. I got to walk with Mr. Holmesley at Dudley, went over to see him, touch base. Actually, I was seeing Vanessa. And while I was there, I looked and I saw the kids' faces and the kids' smiles. We're dealing with a lot of things adult level, but when you see those little guys look up to me and go, how tall are you? Are you my principal? And they are so happy to be there. And to me, that's the biggest testament to our staff is they are doing everything they can to keep our kids safe, shelter them from what's going on right now, and make sure that they have everything they need. And our people take it so serious that no one is skirting their duties. People are going above and beyond, and I thank them all for that. And I appreciate them for that. And I appreciate our administrators who at this time are always stressed out because it's the beginning of school year, but there's an extra layer. And COVID is providing an extra layer. And today, the smoke, an extra layer. And so we just need to appreciate what everyone's doing, those in this room, those at home, those that are probably already asleep because they're tired. But I thank them for everything. And we appreciate all that people are doing around here to make it successful for our students. So with that, that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Lear. All right, on to item number 14, consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve with items 1, 2, and 27 excluded?
So we're the second.
The motion here is motion by Mrs. Pope, seconded by Mrs. Anderson. And just to clarify, this is a motion to approve the entire consent agenda other than 1, 2, and 27. Roll call vote. Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope. Aye. And the chair votes aye. Thank you. The agenda has been passed. Are there any comments about anything that was on the consent agenda? You know, last few meetings we've had some comments.
I do have a comment. I would just like to tell Mr. Lair and staff, I know some of these items on the consent agenda do not need board approval. But in my opinion, I thank you for putting them on. It's better to be informed than ill-informed and find out by community member or otherwise. So I do appreciate that, and I would appreciate continuing with that practice.
You should also point out that there was a change in September board meeting.
Yes.
Note that.
So thank you. The board did make an adjustment to the September meeting, be the fourth Wednesday instead of the third Wednesday. So I appreciate that.
And I also noted that there are several items on here that are directly related to the additional supports that we're providing for students. So kudos to the administrative staff and everyone for getting those in place to help bring our students back up to speed. And just know that in that regard, all the students are in the same boat. They all were out. So there's not, I mean, I know that some did better in remote learning than others, but we're making sure that everyone gets brought back up to speed. Those lovely people out there, not me, those people are making sure that they get back up to speed, right? Okay, and then moving on, let's take items, do you want to do item 1 and 2 together or individually?
I would prefer to do them together. I was the person who asked for these two to be pulled or related. My comments are related to both.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
It's to bring it to the floor for discussion. So that I can comment.
Either one brings it to the floor for discussion. So if you want to bring it to the floor, that's fine, but if you want to move to approve, that brings it to the floor for discussion as well. Either way.
I motion to bring it to the floor for discussion.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Dr. Lee?
Yes, so I did ask for these two items to be pulled. It's the meeting minutes for June 9th and June 16th, the regular meetings. And these are the meeting minutes, approving the adoption of them. And first, I want to thank Carol for her service as our board secretary. I know that it's no easy feat, and I truly appreciate all you do. I did ask for these items to be pulled on principle related to accuracy and transparency, because our board minutes are historical and legal artifacts. And this is why it's essential to me that my utterances and contributions that I make during the meeting are accurately captured and presented, and that not just the perspectives of the board majority are preserved in our meeting minutes for public record. So first, for both June 9th and 16th meeting notes, I'm requesting the minutes be amended to reflect that for the flag salute agenda item, as I did today, and as I've consistently done since the majority decision on this matter, I noted for our record that participation in the Pledge of Allegiance is not a requirement to participate in the business of this board, and furthermore, that members of the community who do not participate in the pledge for religious, political, social, or personal reasons are most welcome to engage in the business of this board. That's for both meeting notes sections in June 9th and 16th. And then second, in the board member reports section of the June 16th meeting notes, I am requesting an amendment to my report to include a full account of my contributions, which were more substantial than the 2 bullet points that are presently provided in the meeting minutes. I'm requesting that the minutes be amended to reflect that in addition to recognizing June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month, I express that we've made great strides as a nation, but we have so much further to go to accelerate acceptance and to stamp out violence and discrimination against LGBTQ youth and people in our communities, and to support equal rights. I also am requesting an amendment to the second bullet point to note that I did inform the public where they may access the Zoom link for my drop-in office hours on the board website. And this is super important when folks look back at these meeting notes to know that I inform folks of how to access the office hours and where to access them. I wanted the board report for my section to reflect that I thanked our teachers who are embracing representation and inclusion, our history and social science and health education frameworks. Also that I applauded our teachers who work with organizations like the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network to raise awareness at our local school sites, to create safe spaces for our students and our faculty and staff in our schools by establishing safe zones, gay straight alliances, student clubs for our LGBTQ plus youth. So they have places to be free. And please do amend the notes to reflect that I thanked our Family Resource Center for providing welcoming and inviting resources that validate and embrace the diverse family types that are in our community. I just want to thank Carol for all you do. I remain hopeful that working together, we can capture and preserve the board majority and minority perspectives with the same levels of detail in our meeting movements as we move forward. And so I am making a motion that the amended minutes, as I've requested, be included for our June 6th and June 19th meeting minutes and presented on the consent agenda for approval at our next board meeting.
This was never meant to be a verbatim repeat of what you say in the meetings. It's just,
Thank you, I appreciate that, but as I noted, the 2 bullet points in my section that were recorded for me were not reflective of what I stated, and that's why I've asked for the
if you did that
amendments.
for
as
everybody, you should be
requested.
writing a book every week.
Actually, if you look at the real estate of the board reports, most of our board member comments have about 6 to 7 bullet points that do capture the essence of what each person said. Only my report has 2 bullet points, which did not capture the essence. And so that's crucial. These are public records. As a person who, comes from a history background, it's essential, folks do read these things. They see what was the climate like, what did folks say, what motions were made, what actions were taken. And so having a full account is essential. So I am making a motion to amend as requested.
Yeah, I will second that. Are you asking that we bring them forward again or that we go ahead and approve them as amended?
I'm asking that they be brought forward again, so that in our next packet, we have a complete accounting of both meetings.
And I just want to say that there have been times in the past where I've also made those same requests of Carol. When I see the minutes, I contact them and I say, this doesn't reflect correctly what I said. Please correct it. And then they correct it and they provide a corrected version for the meeting. So, we probably could expedite the process a little bit. There is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting specific things that you stated on the record to be on the record. And I fully appreciate that request.
Yeah, so what we can do if approved, then what we'll do is we'll work with Carol, we'll bring detail back especially for the board report pieces and make sure we cover it. And then I can try to float it by you, Dr. Lee, ahead of time, just to make sure, and each of you, if you like, or when the agenda comes out, like Ms. Kelly, you just said, happy if someone comes up, sees something, we've gone back to the tape. Carol does an outstanding job. But it does put a little bit of decision on her, and so we're trying to work it out, but we'll get it. And I appreciate, Dr. Lee, your appreciation of Carol there, because you she's working hard. And
Yes.
so if we do anything to do that, I would want to make sure that we always capture, especially in the board reports. I know you do a lot with your board reports too. We want to make sure we capture that. So this is a good opportunity that we can all work to create that.
And if it doesn't really matter to you very much, whether it's exactly captured, that's one thing, but if it's something that matters to you personally, there's absolutely no problem with asking to have it revised. And again, like Scott was saying, is that these are decisions that Carol's having to make. She's not inside our heads, so she doesn't know what's important to us and what's not. And I think that our feedback is critical.
So just to reiterate, we're not gonna do word for word, we'll do bullet points.
We'll continue the same process, and if there are concerns, then we bring it back to them and they can make revisions. So we've done that many times.
For the revision of 1 and 2, we're gonna go back and do bullet points. We're not going word for word.
Correct. I think
But
what I
I'm not
heard.
capturing the essence of what she said, I think.
Right.
is what she
Bullet
said.
points, not word for word.
Right. I think that's what was requested was the idea that the themes of the board members' report would be carried through in that. And we can certainly do that. Word for word, there have been times historically that folks have submitted their board comments to us and we can attach those. But otherwise, we would do themes within that and make sure that the intent of what's being said, and that will actually help Carol and myself.
And I'm sure Carol and Dr. Lee could work together to make sure that what is presented.
Yes, we have worked together in the past, using the exact process that you described. Madam President, I believe you were included on a couple of those emails, but this time with the break and everything, it just so happened that there wasn't enough time. So that's why I just, upon reading, did go ahead and bring it to open floor. But hopefully, as we move forward, we'll just be able to just have that capturing of everyone, of the themes that everyone presents in their reports and other aspects of the meeting, like the statements in the free speech portion for the pledge.
Okay, so at this point, we have a motion and a second to revise the meeting notes. Dr. Lee moved and I made a second that we would revise the meeting notes and bring them forward for approval at the next regular roll call vote. Dr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Bruno?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope? Aye. And the chair votes aye. All right, so item number 27, we asked to have it pulled from the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion?
I would motion, please.
Motion to,
Discussion.
or to bring it forward for discussion, and do we have a second?
Also,
Mrs. Anderson, thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Pope.
Thank you, President Kelly. Mr. Putnam, would you just give a little overview of the situation with the non-pro playground equipment and why we had a change order of $29 million?
Yes, I'll be more than happy. So in this process, we had unforeseen circumstances. Those unforeseen circumstances were buried under approximately 3.5 feet of softball material. In the process of redoing the playground for the play structure, the softball material was removed. We found that we had a rather severe slope. So usually you try and have your strata for everything to be level. The current, when we removed the bark, we had, I would say, probably about a 6 to 7 degree slope that we had going. So from your low point to your high point was almost a 4-foot difference. We had some of the posts for that were barely into the ground. Concrete and just the softball is what was holding that in place. So in order to rectify that, we had to bring in over 300 cubic yards of road base, have the area compacted down, create a relatively level strata field. So instead of having this huge difference, now we are pretty much level. We've got maybe a slight 1 degree just to help to facilitate any drainage for the area. So the cost on that was to bring in all the road base, well, one, to remove all the bark out of the play area, where originally we were only gonna do it in the areas that were to be affected. Bring in temporary fencing, take out asphalt because there was asphalt in places where we needed to put in the new, bring in the new road base, compact that down, then go through, do all the install to properly put that down. Now all the bases on that are down a good 2 feet into the compacted road base material, have concrete around them. And then it's the process of bringing all the softball material back in and getting that properly spread around. And that is why we had that large amount. And when they first gave me the numbers, I went out there the next morning, first thing, and I just did a quick pace off, and I'm like, yep, that's the right amount of material they need to get this done.
Well, thank goodness somebody got hurt.
Exactly. I mean, it was really, when they pulled that, we all looked like, not good. So we are thankful that nothing ever happened with the old. The new is in there quite sturdily. So I don't see any issues with that going forward.
is that at Dudley?
That is at North Country.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
You're
Any
welcome.
other questions for Mr. Putnam?
Thank you for the clarification. I
You
appreciate
got
it.
it. Thank you.
We have a motion to approve item number 27.
I'm motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Pope. And Mrs. Anderson, second. Thank you. Roll call vote, Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Bruno,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson,
aye.
Mrs. Pope,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Moving on to business item 15, instructional materials adoption, grades 9 through 12, science, next generation science standards textbooks. And I'm just going to go ahead and read all this. It says the science department at Center High School, grades 9 through 12, reached agreement in recommending the following textbooks. The following document lists science courses and the corresponding recommended curriculum textbooks that will be used in the course of study. With adoption of these materials, we will have completed our adoption cycle for science materials. Do we need to read the items? Somebody like them to?
There's a bunch of books. While you're looking for that, I would just commend and compliment the Center High Science Department and Mr. George's C&I department, Ms. Lawson. It's no easy task to go through an adoption cycle, and we take these things extremely serious. So they took about 2 years because they took it so serious. So they went through it page by page. So I just want to commend them for their efforts in selecting the materials that we will have for a few years. So,
Yeah. Okay, no problem. So now, do we vote prior to or do we do the public hearing next?
so this is an item by itself. That would be just the approval of the material science materials. The next items, the next two, you'd open a public hearing for instructional materials as related to sufficiency.
Got it. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve item A?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno.
Skill over here.
Mr. Jordan. You're taking a deep breath. I'll second that motion, just to calm him down a bit.
Okay, roll call vote. Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. Poe, the chair votes aye. The curriculum has been approved. Don't panic. All right, we read this. So Center Joint Unified School District notice of public hearing, the governing board of the Center Joint Unified School District, in order to comply with the requirements of Education Code Section 60119, will hold a public hearing on August 18, 2021 at 6 o'clock. The purpose of the public hearing is to comply with the Education Code Section 60119, which requires school district to certify that the district has provided each pupil with sufficient textbooks and instructional materials consistent with the cycles and content of the curriculum frameworks. Meeting will be held here, district room, boardroom 503, Wilson C. Riles. Today, Matt.
So you would open, at this point, there'd be any opportunity for a public to give comment on non-sufficiency or bring anything to the board's attention. It's just an opportunity for the public to provide feedback before we close it and then look at the other two items.
Okay, do we have any comments from the public? No comments online. Going once, going twice. Hearing none, the public hearing is hereby closed. And we will move on to business item B, certification of provision of standards aligned instructional materials. This item would certify that as of this date, each pupil of the district in kindergarten through grade 12 has been provided with a standards aligned textbook or basic instructional materials to meet the requirements of Ed Code Section 60422A. We have a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Pope. We have a second. I'll second it. Mrs. Kelly will second. And roll call vote, Dr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Mrs. Pope, and the chair votes aye. Moving on to business item C, resolution number 3/2021-22, statement of assurances instructional materials fund. This resolution is to certify that the district has sufficient materials in core subjects. We have a motion to approve.
I'll motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. We have a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Bruno, roll call vote. Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there any discussion? Sorry. Apologies.
No, they're really all both intertwined, those two.
Okay, wonderful. Dr. Lee.
Aye.
This is Mr. Bruno. Mr. Bruno. We're voting to approve item C. I think we lost you.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, I'm sorry. Are we doing roll call vote at this point?
We are doing a roll call vote on the approval of item C, which was motioned by Mrs. Anderson and seconded by Mrs. Pope.
Okay, I will vote aye.
And Mrs. Anderson
Aye.
and Mrs. Pope. Sorry, the chair votes aye. Sorry. Okay, business item D, nominations for CSBA directors at large, African American, American Indian, and county. Nominations for the CSBA Director at Large, African American and American Indian are currently being accepted until Friday, October 1, 2021. Nominations must be made by a CSBA member board, and the nominee must be a board member from a CSBA member district. Do we have a motion? Do we have any nominations?
So it would be, how it would work is if the board does have someone to put forward, the board would approve that, and then we would send that name on to CSBA. In the past, if we didn't have anyone, it just falls to the floor. We did, it comes up a couple different times throughout the year. So if there are no nominations, sometimes, fellow board members or one of you might be interested, we go that route.
Is anyone interested? All right. Then, so then we do not have a motion.
Just table the item.
Yep, we'll move on to item number E, board policies and regulations exhibits. We have 2 new board policies that relate to the new law, AB 130, 2021. Do we have a motion to approve?
I should bring the floor.
To bring it to the floor, Mrs. Anderson. Second, Mrs. Pope, and we have discussion.
So the only thing I would share is independent study. Distance learning used to be done through a different format last year. The state has come back and said to students that don't come to school as a choice, they would go through our independent study program. They made significant changes to the program to help support students. For example, for elementary, there's a daily check-in required where usually in independent study it's 1 time a week. So the law also stated within 30 days, we need to adopt a policy. This is a sample policy from CSBA that we get. It meets with the letter of the law. It will fulfill our responsibility for 2020 or 21-22 school year to meet that requirement and also allow us to continue with the program that we are currently offering.
So just to clarify, we're just making minor adjustments to our independent study and it's in compliance with AB 130.
Correct. Thank you.
We have a motion to approve.
How much are you doing that?
No, you brought it forward for discussion.
A motion to approve.
Mrs. Anderson and the second, Mrs. Pope. Thank you. Dr. Lee
Aye.
and Mr. Bruno,
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson.
Aye.
Oh, and the chair votes aye. Item E has been approved. Item F, face coverings. The Board of Trustees asked that this be placed on the agenda for discussion. It is also an act wish to bring forward an action item. And would someone like to bring this to the floor?
I would like to bring it to the floor for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno.
Second it.
And Mrs. Anderson seconded. Let's talk.
So the original intent, I think the board had asked me at the last meeting to provide you guys an update on where we are with face coverings as it relates to our students. At that point, back in June, we did not know what the rules would be. We had indications CDPH would be recommending masks be worn. CDPH came back and did not recommend, they mandated. And then later, about 2 weeks later, Sacramento County Health Director Dr. Cyrier came back with a even stronger health order saying all masks must be worn indoors in Sacramento County. So that is the latest status of where masks are. In my view right now, it's not a choice for us. It is a requirement by our health director, also a mandate by not only CDPH, but a recommendation by multiple groups. One of the things that is happening, yes, we will continue to work with our students if the student isn't wearing masks. We have not had that, knock on wood. Most people, I think, are able to say, hey, let's wear a mask if they can follow the protocol to keep our schools open. So thankfully, our community has really helped us and helped us support this effort. We've not had challenges to that effort.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item? We do in the room. Please step forward. Did you do a card?
No.
Provided, yeah, just.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I have 2 children at Oak Hill. And my only thing about masks is my little one, who's in 2nd grade, has been coming home and his mask is wearing the blue ones. Filthy, just totally dirty. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we could have students changing their masks at some point during the day, because it's just, I even have pictures, but it's pretty crazy. And then also, are you accepting mask exemptions from doctors?
So to the first question, we absolutely can. And what we found, I know your children are littler. So what we found is the volume of masks we're going through are pretty significant now. So we do have plenty, so we can work with Oak Hill in this case to say it's okay for a student to have multiple masks, especially if they're filthy.
I actually sent him his own, his backpack, he has a whole pack. It's just, he doesn't know to change them. And so.
And we could certainly work with the teacher or the school to make sure that's good. Thank you for sending that in. And then as far as the exemptions, Mr. Jordan, I know we do have some mask exemptions for some of our more medically fragile kids. So there are some. Anything, Mr. Jordan, you'd like to add to that, or?
Yeah, so it just came out about 2 weeks ago that a doctor's note is required for a mask exemption. So if there is a doctor's note, absolutely, we will.
My daughter is on an IEP and we're new to the district, so we haven't had the meeting that's coming up, but she has a severe speech delay. And so people cannot see, she's very quiet when she speaks and nobody can see her face, and even her teacher is struggling. So would that be something that could go in an IEP without a doctor's note?
For the exemption, it would require a doctor's note. That's now the state law, state ruling, excuse me. But we bought a couple hundred masks that have clear plastic so that you can see their mouth and they can see the teacher's mouth as well. If you'll touch base with your site admin, we have them at all sites, and your speech teacher. I don't want to go into your IEP, but
Well, we
have
haven't
a
had the
speech
meeting,
teacher.
so we can't.
All the speech staff have those that they can give to kids.
Okay, great.
And so you just take those home and either wash them or we can provide them.
Okay.
And we can always order more of those too.
Okay, great. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You know, that could be a problem with kids who are hard of hearing because they teach themselves how to read lips without even realizing it.
Yeah,
That away.
the guidelines actually do state, students that are hearing impaired are, where the ability to see the mouth is essential for communication, they are exempt as well. So that might be something that might be in an IEP, for example, with the hearing impaired students.
So I did have just a few things. It doesn't look like we really have a lot of comments. People are very understanding in fact that we have mask mandates and we are required to follow them. But I did want to just mention a couple pieces of data. In the initial stages of the pandemic and most of the way through the pandemic, children were not as affected. They were out of school, they were not interacting, and the numbers were much lower. Now that they're returning, the cumulative percentage of cases for children 0 to 17 is 13.5% of all cases. So they've caught up from not having had that many cases from the beginning to where they're now exceeded the number of cases in 65-year-olds and almost reached the number of cases in 50 to 64-year-olds. So, I mean, they're definitely increasing. In the past week, well, as of August 12th, there were 4.41 million children that have tested positive for COVID. Over 121,000 cases were added the past week. This is nationwide, which is a substantial increase. Cumulatively, there have been 14.4% of the total cases. And the last week, ending August 12th, they were 18% of the new cases. So that's an enormous jump between their cumulative and what they've now reached on a weekly basis. So just something to keep in mind, the cases are shooting up. We must follow the mandates, not just because they're mandates, but because that is what's going to keep our kids safe. The children that have not been vaccinated because of their age are relying on us to protect them. So we as adults need to make sure that we are following the protocols and that our students, as hard as it is, are also following the protocols. So we want to keep everybody as safe as we possibly can. Another piece of information here, vaccinations in Sacramento County are actually statewide. For 12 to 17-year-olds, only 44% of 12 to 17-year-olds have had both vaccinations. So that means, less than half of the students who are eligible have actually been vaccinated. I imagine that number will continue to go up as these numbers are surging. I'm hoping that people are watching the news and realizing that this is not just a game we're playing, that it's real, very real. One of the things that the CDC reported at this time, it appears that severe illness due to COVID-19 is uncommon among children. However, there is an urgent need to collect more data on longer-term impacts of the pandemic on children, including ways the virus may harm the long-term physical health of infected children. So we know that there are 6, 8, 10, 12 months after recovery, there are neurological, there are heart problems, there's all kinds of issues still lingering in adults. And so we know that there are going to be lingering issues with children as well. In addition, there's the disease called MIS-C, C is basically, you read exactly what it says. Pardon? Yes, I do. I have extras of all. I just kind of grabbed a bunch of little bits and pieces from CPP and other places. Let's see. Oh, where did I put it? Here we go. Did you see me trying to put my fingers with this mask? That was funny. Okay, here we go. So in April of 2020, a cluster of children with hyperinflammatory shock was reported. The patient's symptoms developed 2 to 4 weeks after acute COVID-19. All the children had evidence of SARS-CoV-2 infection. Symptoms that were present included fever, rash, conjunctivitis, peripheral edema, gastrointestinal symptoms, shock, and elevated markers of inflammation and cardiac damage. The illness in 86% of the patients involved 4 or more organ systems. 2/3 did not have pre-existing underlying medical conditions. And I mean, there are substantial numbers of MIS-C patients that have had severe complications, including cardiac suspension, shock, myocarditis, coronary artery dilation, or aneurysm, and acute kidney injury. Since the beginning of, since May of 2020, when CDC started tracking this, there have been 4,404 cases nationwide and 37 deaths. Not a lot, but it's definitely something that we need to be concerned with as we bring students back and they're interacting and they're not vaccinated. So just please understand that we have to follow these protocols and protect everybody. Pardon? Nationwide, 4,404 and 37 deaths. That's CDC tracking. Anybody wants some of these details, you're welcome to them. Do you have any other comments about face coverings?
I have some comments I'd like to make.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bruno.
First of all, as I mentioned earlier, my entire household tested positive for COVID. This includes my child, who is a student at Center District, who never showed any symptoms. At the point where we went to go get tested last week, they decided to come along because they weren't doing anything else at the moment. We really didn't think we had it, but we were getting tested just to be on the safe side. If my student were not wearing masks in school, I can imagine that we would have far higher numbers right now of infected students. That right there is a huge concern for me. When I interviewed for this board position, one of the questions that was asked of me was, how do I reconcile my beliefs with the needs of the students and the needs of the community? And I said, first and foremost, we have to follow the law, because if we do something that's against the law, it's just going to be struck down anyway. And right now, the law says that we have to keep mask mandates.
Did we lose you, Mr. Bruno, or was that a mic drop moment? I think we lost him. It was perfectly timed.
It was.
Okay, I'm sorry. I am having an. What I was saying is the safety of the students is a high priority. And frankly, if we don't require masks, I think we are sacrificing the safety of the students and we're heading towards shutting down the schools again. And I don't think any of us want that. So that's my.
One more thing. There have been breakthrough cases where people have died, even though they've been vaccinated. There's a Southwest Airlines flight attendant who got it after being vaccinated and passed. So, I mean, I know there's more than just that one case. So just keeping in mind that we're not just protecting the children, we're protecting everybody. We are not wearing masks, it spreads regardless of whether you've been vaccinated. So people who have not been vaccinated, we are putting their lives at risk. Not only that, but by perpetuating the spread of the virus, it gives the virus every opportunity to mutate further and create a stronger, more virulent virus that can break through our vaccines. So I'm
Only that.
imploring everybody to please get vaccinated.
Not only that, but the fact that kids don't die from it is a lie. Kids are dying.
Yeah, kids are dying. Not as many numbers, but again, they've not been in classrooms interacting, so it's really hard to say what the data says at this point. All right.
So I just want to just add to the discussion, even, being vaccinated, it can give us a false sense of security. At Duke University, it was just reported over 100 of their students and staff who were vaccinated for COVID have tested positive for it. So there's a lot of breakthrough things going on. We just simply do not know so many things. So I'm just really thankful for our district having a sane policy around masking that's looking to keep everybody safe.
To follow up on what Dr. Lee just said, my case is a breakthrough case. I was fully vaccinated, and actually, to be honest, I had a rough time with the vaccine, but I was happy to do it, and I'll probably go get a booster again in the not too distant future when they are recommending that. And as I was explaining to some family members recently, if the vaccine provides, let's say, a 75% protection against infection, that's pretty good. However, if you're getting exposed by, let's say, 4 different people, that 75% protection multiplied 4 times over brings it down to only about a 30% protection. That's rounding down. It's closer to like 31, 32%, I think. But my point is, when we only have some people vaccinated and we don't have herd immunity yet, that vaccination is at risk. There's only so much it can do.
Especially until the next mutation.
I think,
Okay,
Ms. Jane,
I think we're done.
Kelly, I think there was a
So to
public.
Ms. Kelly, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry, I'm hard of hearing. I didn't hear you.
So, I had a child that experienced the Miss C situation, and almost lost her to this whole COVID Miss C. She was a child that was just in here. She had no symptoms. None of my kids had symptoms, only myself and my oldest daughter. It attacked her hard. It broke her liver down. It really took her down, but she was one of the cases that survived within a week. She recovered. There was a lot of kids in this hospital at Sutter Memorial who was fighting their life, who was there for 5 and 6 weeks. So masks, I really, really, really recommended that masks does stay in schools, in classes, in the cafeteria. I mean, I understand kids need to breathe when they're outside, but to really, teachers need to really enforce this while these kids are at school.
Yeah. Actually,
that was really scary.
There is no evidence that the masks are impeding anyone's breathing. So that's a myth.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Oh, no.
Thank you, Mrs. Jenkins. I'm very sorry that happened to your family and so happy that she's better. I hope it stays that way. All right, shall we move on? Do we have a motion on item F?
There was no action. It was just open if there was an action, but if.
No, I know. I just wanted to be official.
Yep.
That it dies on the floor. So naming a property west of Rouse Middle School, item G, trustee Pope, that this be brought to the board. Do you have a motion to bring it forward?
I'll motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. Pope, Mrs. Anderson?
Okay, so why I wanted to bring this to the board is for a couple reasons. For one, we own the property already, so we may as well name it. And number 2, we have a lot of building going on across the street and as well as Placer County. So eventually this school is going to be built, not in 5 years, probably not in 8, but maybe 10 to 15. So I wanted to give you a little history on the property and the community of Antelope And it's so much information and I condensed it down to like 15, 25 minutes. So just bear with me here. I'm joking. But seriously, just a few footnotes. So the district was created in 1958 with a one-room schoolhouse. That was at Mahoney. Sorry, 1858. Thank you. 1862, the district boundaries were laid. And our school was within the Union District of Placer County. J.G. Gould, Dyer, and J. Williams were the first trustees. Now, J.G. Gould was the first clerk to be on the board. J.G. Gould's property was north of PFE, so across from the west side of Riles. So that was his whole property, and I believe it was from beyond Wallaraga to, let's say, Folks. And then, so that was his property. Also, the Goulds that were board members is O.J. Gould, who was elected and became clerk who was elected, I'm not sure what year, but became clerk in 1881. A.D. Gould was elected in 1908. Now, Arthur Gould is the grandson of J.G. Gould, who was the first clerk and one of the first trustees, and his wife Beatrice Pruitt owned the property in question at west of Riles. Now, their family homestead, I don't know when it was established, but it has been there for several years. It was said that Beatrice Pruitt was also a teacher at Dry Creek, was also a board member, but I don't have years on that either. Now, after the death of Arthur and Beatrice Gould, their children, Stanley and Lynn Gould, was handed down the property. In 1941, the center bell that was removed from the school years ago, was then put into a bell tower at the Gould Ranch. And they used that bell for signaling air raids and fire, and they would alert the community. In 1947, the bell was released from the tower at the Gould property and put on the Gould property underneath this walnut tree. Now, I'm unsure of when the district was owner or has, the bell came back to the district, but I don't know if Carol has that information, but sometime the district retrieved the bell back. Now, around 2003, Center Joint Unified School District purchased the property where we are right now from Lynn and Stanley Gould. And we made Riles Middle School. Well, then around 2005, our district purchased the property west of Riles, knowing that we're going to need an elementary school soon. Now, since then, Stanley Gould has passed. He passed this May of 2021 with non-COVID symptoms. However, Lynn Gould is still alive and well. So for this information, based on the pioneering of this family within the community and with this district, I would request or recommend the board to name that property the elementary school, Gould Ranch Elementary.
I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion? Can you try to try?
I have some thoughts on this. And this has nothing to do with the Gould family. It has to do with the practice of naming schools after people in general. I have some reservations about doing so because sometimes information comes out at a later date that causes someone to be viewed differently than they were.
And that's a
For instance, and again, this has nothing to do with the Gould family. I'm not trying to imply anything there, but let's say we named a different school site after a different person, and then 5 years later, evidence came forward that they were a serial killer. Yes, that's an outlandish example, but that's the kind of thing that, you know, I kind of am somewhat hesitant to name schools after people. At the same time, but at the same time, as you just laid out, there's a lot of history there with the family and the district, and I can see the point of honoring that. I'm just kind of talking out loud and thinking out loud here.
You know, Steve, I agree with you 100%. If it was named after a person, I would have not voted for that at all. However, we're naming it after a family. And the family has been established since, well, 1858. So if there was one person in the family that went disarray, I can see your point, but this is a family. So we're not naming it Arthur Gould Elementary, it's Gould Ranch, Gould Ranch Elementary. And let me clarify, so the Goulds, before PFE was even there, J.B. Gould owned the property, as well as O.J. Gould, A.J. Gould, and Arthur Gould. Let's just say PFE was not there. So it went from Placer County, where I mentioned where J.B. Gould is, all the way to past, up to Redwater, to Walerga, to Foes. And there's many families that own that property. So as you can think, when you settle into an area of the land, somebody buys the land and they sell it off to family members. Well, that's what happened to the Gould family.
I believe there was a Gould on the board for over 100 years. If I
Well,
remember my history right.
Man, they were really old.
well, the Dyers, it was the Dyer family that had like 93 years. The Goulds came in 1858, and then again at 1881 and 1906. So it wasn't consecutive.
It wasn't consecutive, okay.
But Dyers did, but Dyers have nothing to do with this property.
Right.
So Steve, to answer your question, we're not naming it after a person, though it's a family.
And I was just gonna say, things like that might occasionally happen, and if something like that was to happen and the Gould family name became, taboo, then we would rename the school, and that would be,
And that's happened.
that it could happen. As long as it's not, let's say, as long as we're not.
And they
gonna-
hung on to the veil for us. That's, the air raid siren, they
Yeah.
kept in their barn for the Center School District forever. And then we finally got it back. I thought that was neat.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any more discussion on this? Public comment, please?
This one is from a center parent. It says, please don't name the school now. Allow the families and staff of that school to choose the name. Oh, never mind. Nope, that's enough.
That's one of the benefits the word gets.
I mean, have we ever allowed the staff to name a school, or is that something that the district?
So
does?
It has to be.
Sorry.
The board has done it both ways. The board policy recommends a committee that gets together and goes through that process. It does not require it. However, like when Rex Fortune was named next door and then moved, it was not a committee. The board took that action.
That's
So-
policy.
And there was repercussions because of that, went poorly. Just saying.
Let's not use that one as an example. Is that what you're saying?
You just mentioned you don't want to name it after one person. That's probably why.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry about that. So the idea was the board policy does call for that. It does not require it, but any naming of facilities would be subject to you guys as the board. You could delegate it to that. You could.
That policy though was brand new, strictly because Donald didn't feel like.
The policy has been in place, similar to that for years. It did get modified a little bit and then it has come back, but most boards do.
So at this point, the choice is, do we name it now, or do we appoint a committee, or do we just table it until it gets closer to the time for the school to be open? Do we have any opinions about that from any of the other board members?
I think forming a committee, in my opinion, would be the best route to go.
Any other?
It used to be considered one of the only benefits
Not
the
to tell
board
you
had.
that.
It used to be considered one of the only real benefits the board had was to be able to name the.
These schools, I would suggest it, and maybe trustee Pope would like to be on that committee, because usually we would have some more representation on that. The only thing I would say, and I did share this with some of you, is that usually you start that process when the school gets going, like the Sierra Vista School, the one that's Rex Fortune, the board had made that action, made the switch and had the thing. So you would have two options. You can say, let's get a committee going, let's do it. In that case, the committee might be a little bit premature, because I mean,
We don't have the parents.
sometimes there's things now, if the committee goes to recommending and surveying, hey, does the Gould Ranch, does that make sense? So there's a couple different avenues you could go to on that, or, the board would have the authority also to name that property. And then the only thing I say is, if you do name it, and then before it's there, it does make it hard, because on future boards, you hate to unravel things that boards have done, and that was the problem we ran into when we moved it, because.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to name it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get changed.
What if we were to make a recommendation at this point for the future committee? Is that too weird?
There you go.
I didn't want this to be a long drawn out thing. Can we just table it for now? And
Withdraw your motion, which was to name this.
well, I did no, actually wanted it up for discussion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, and I don't think there actually was an item to name it tonight. I think that the board had that authority. My recommendation would be, if you did agree, I would come back and say, let's bring it back with a formal recommendation to name the school Gould Ranch Elementary. But at this point, I think the public would deserve that a little bit and provide feedback. I really think the historical aspect you provided, I think there is something that's very neat about that. Our district is rich in history, 1858. I think by honoring our community and having a plan as we go forward is very important. And I think it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly either. And I think Ms. Pope has done a great job of researching why. I know you personally knew some of the family.
I do.
And have that. So I think those things in a committee format are gonna hold the day.
And you also got to remember the houses behind, or the side of Riles and north of it was Gould property. I live on Gould property.
Do we need to vote to table an item, or do we just table it?
No,
we
because
just
this
table
was really no action to it. It was just.
So to my understanding, we're going to table it, or we're gonna table it and form a committee, and then bring it back later.
Whatever the will of you guys is. I don't know if.
I would suggest forming a committee and then tabling it after the committee has met. And then we could determine to the committee when we want to bring it to the board.
Do we need to make a motion to form a committee?
You can, or you can just give direction. The
Let's just give
policy,
direction.
so you can give me the direction.
So let's give direction to Mr. Lair, and he'll be able to form a committee. I would like to be on that committee.
And
I have a question about just the including of the community members and something that was mentioned. How will we be ensuring that and site staff representation with this committee? It'd be one thing to form a committee now and there's no parents that are there yet, there's no staff that's there yet. So if we're really wanting it to be inclusive of the community, when would this committee be forming? What's the timeline for that? And so that it does include the public.
And that's an excellent.
That is a very good question.
So what we could do, and Mr. Putnam and I can do, is take the direction from the board. Unfortunately, it might be long direction because, I don't know if it's 5 years. I don't know if it's 8 years. I don't think it's gonna be 15. There's too much building. I think that could be one of our next schools. I think our next one will be up in Sierra Vista again. And then if Placer Vineyards and Riolo Vineyards finishes out, that could be sooner. You just don't know. But
How about if we table it for 1 year and then look at this situation as far as building and decide at that point if we want to establish the committee and then push it out again? That sound reasonable, or do you want to get it done?
No, 1 year, I think is a good idea.
So just the direction I'm getting is we'll revisit in a year. We are gonna look at the committee aspect of it and try to involve community at which would be at that school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any concerns, questions, further comments from the board? Or anyone else?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Great, let's move on to item
Research. Save
H.
it.
Item H is regarding our meeting format. Trustee Bruno asked that this be brought to the board. Do we have a motion to bring it forward for discussion?
All motion.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Mr. Bruno, Mrs. Anderson. And I believe this was yours, Mr. Bruno, so take it away.
Okay, interestingly, this is something that came up earlier in the meeting. Currently, the way that our board meetings are progressing, we do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Dr. Lee makes the statement about how you don't need to participate. You're still welcome and everything. And I think that it would be a better message if that's coming from a unified board position. And so what I would like to do is amend our standard agenda protocol so that we make that statement as a board before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, to let people know there's no expectation to participate. You're welcome to not participate. You're still welcome to participate in the rest of the meeting if you choose not to participate in this. I mean, frankly, I think Dr. Lee's statement is very well written, and if we could just put that in, I think that would be absolutely wonderful.
So are you suggesting copying what Dr. Lee states and put it on the board agenda? As opposed to saying it out loud?
Or both?
Well, I don't think you need both.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to make it both, because then it's stated in the writing and it's verbally stated into the space where we all are.
I agree. The only concern I would have with that is that the board president would be the one reading it, which I have no problem reading it. I believe the statement is really valid, but I wouldn't want to take that away from you who are the person, you are the person that really brought it forward and wants to make that statement. So as long as no one would have any objection to Dr. Lee reading it prior to the Pledge of Allegiance and having it on the agenda, I think that would be a great format.
Well, I think I'm just hearing what Trustee Bruno said. It seems like it's an individual thing right now. And what I heard him say is it would be better if it was something that was just embedded in the process. So it's not like, oh, one person speaking, after everything, whoever's introducing that item would say
As long as
it.
you're good with that, I'm happy with that decision as well. I think that
It seems
makes more sense.
to unify the voice, it seems that it'd be best coming because the board president asked for it, if the board president made the statement and then people participate, or
Right.
they make their option. But I think to Trustee Bruno's comment, it does seem if Dr. Lee is the only one saying it, then it seems like it's not a unified thing. Would be my only observation of what you guys are discussing.
Okay, so do we have a motion? I'm sorry, Nancy. Pardon? Can you repeat that? Because it's fairly late. Dr. Lee, would you object to shortening the statement?
Which one? We're talking about
Your pledge.
about the pledge. I don't have it open. It's like a one sentence statement. I don't know how we shorten it. Let me. I don't have it present in my mind.
What we could do while Dr. Lee's looking there, I could get a copy of that and we could bring it back and or I could send it offline to each of you and get feedback, or however you want to do it.
Yeah, please, thank you.
I mean, if that works for you, we could take that and then we could just circulate that around and then we can start playing with it on the agenda. I think the big thing would be first question is who would state it, or president, I think you guys determine. B would be putting it on the agenda. We just put it part of our template. And then it's there, board member, president reads Pledge of Allegiance, makes the statement, and then it's a unified thing for the community.
Okay, in the interest of expediting the process, can we go ahead and make a motion to approve including a statement in the board agenda, which will be read by the board president prior to the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance, and the exact wording to be determined and approved by the board offline.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
Is everybody okay with that? Let's take a vote. Roll call. Dr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson. That's twice tonight.
Huh?
Mrs. Anderson.
I
And
guess.
Mrs. Pope.
I
And the chair votes
I
aye.
don't think it's necessary at all, but I'll say yes.
I think it's a nice inclusive statement though, I mean, it's nice.
So Dr. Lee, if you don't mind, when you get a chance, just email me your statement, then we'll work it from there. That'd be great. Thank
And
you.
Scott, can I suggest you send it to me since that's.
I have something else I'd like to bring up under the board agenda.
Oh, all right, well, we're still on that item, so please,
Well, we're on,
meeting format,
meeting format.
item H.
I think we should move board comments to the end of the agenda, which is where they were before.
I'm not
Because
married to any particular
I'm
location.
not married to anything.
Huh?
I said I'm not married to any particular location, and the agenda is anything else? Any feelings about that one way or the other?
did go in away.
Yeah.
It's always nice to hear the reports towards the top of the meeting after the comments, and before we get into our actual agenda. That way, they're really not about the agendized items. I noticed that in a lot of the board structures, like in the agendas that I've reviewed, this, where we have it, it's commonly placed, is where it's commonly placed. Placing it at the end might get really into longer comments, running out of time for comments, you know, and just people being exhausted and not as attentive even, you know, towards the end. I always like to hear our superintendent report at the top of our, before we get into agendized items.
What we found is that it kept people from grandstanding constantly. Because we had meetings that went till after midnight, and it was because what we found is that it kept people from grandstanding constantly, because we were having meetings that would go until after midnight. And it was because people would get that microphone and they would go on and on and on and on with stuff that wasn't even about the meeting. It was their own stuff.
3 minutes.
So that's what the idea was, is that if you move it to the back, they're not gonna go on and on all night long.
The other point would be is we have not adhered to the minutes on there. We could always make sure that the board has a collective commitment to stick with the timeframe that they're given. I know it's been always a agreement that if someone a little bit over, you kind of, you know, jokingly, you know, succeeded your time to the other person. But that's another mechanism to stop.
Well, and nobody minds that if you're talking about something that's an active situation in the district, or, you know, it has to do with district business. But when a board member picks something that is just their issue and goes on and on and on about that, it's just sort of wasting time. We have.
I'm hearing
that are
trust.
all night, you know, they're up all night because they have to go to school in the morning, and I mean, it just doesn't work.
So I'm making sure I understand what Trustee Anderson is mentioning here. She's talking to me what I've heard about the past and how folks went on and how the agenda was arranged previously. Are we making a motion to change it back to the past? Because in the present, I haven't seen us going into midnight and all of those other things that happened when the board reports were moved later in the agenda.
And honestly, you know, I really enjoyed hearing, like, when Mrs. Pope talks and has she has a lot of stuff to share a lot of times. And I think each of us brings a different perspective. I don't know. I don't feel like anybody's grandstanding.
It was just a suggestion, that's all.
But Mr. Marion, do you have any thoughts?
I do, and I apologize. My sound keeps cutting in and out because my internet is fuzzy at the moment. So I hope I can get through this.
I know.
So my thought is, if we move it to the end, I'm afraid that what that might turn into is a chance for people to throw in one more comment about something that happened earlier in the meeting, and I'm afraid it would actually lead to increased arguing and fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was just a suggestion, that's all. It's one way of handling it.
Yeah, it gives us something to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do we have a motion on this item? Hearing none, if we're gonna go ahead and move on to item I. Any other discussion for meeting format unrelated to the board reports? Okay, moving on to business item I, monthly recognitions and resources. Trustee Lee asked that we agendize an action item around formally recognizing and providing resources about Pride Month and other months that the California Department of Education recommends. We have a motion to bring this to the floor.
All motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. The second,
I'll second.
Dr. Lee, thank you. I believe this was your item, so would you like to speak first?
Yes, so this item came about, and I want to thank Superintendent Lair and the curriculum staff. They've noted the months from the California Department of Education on our calendar. Previously, there was no notation even there. And as far as the motion goes, as far as formally recognizing it, in discussions with Superintendent Lair, he did note that there were like several months and some months and so forth. And I am totally fine with the curriculum, committee and staff deciding which ones of those to recognize, but just so that we are, recognizing Pride Month at least, and the other months that are recommended by the California Department of Education formally. These are months that, are from marginalized and minoritized communities, largely, many of them. And so that's why I felt it was so important for us as a district to formally recognize them in some fashion.
Yeah, I agree. They are national holidays, so since they are a national holiday, they automatically come on the board calendar. So they're there just because they're a national holiday.
Yeah, actually what was added were these months that we're talking about. Previously, they were not there. So like Pride Month and so forth.
So I'm not sure, but when I go to the board calendar, and if you look at the calendar itself, it doesn't state what the national holiday is until you click on it, and then the national holiday shows on the calendar. But if you're looking at a calendar as a whole, it doesn't show what the national holiday is or what even is scheduled for that day until you click on the actual day.
Yeah, previously previously Pride Month and other months that I'm discussing that are recognized by the California Department of Ed were not noted on our calendar. They've only recently been added and show up now as visible, public facing.
So
That's right, because it's a national holiday.
I'm gonna do two completely opposing opinions here and somehow come to the middle. So my concern, of course, is that once you start celebrating one group, another group is like, well, what about us? That always, seems to be a trap you're walking into. On the other hand, if the California Department of Education is recognizing them, I feel fairly secure that we can then reiterate that statement based on their recommendation. I don't know if they do one a month or 10 a month, I don't know. And so I would be a little concerned about overdoing it, and we already, our meetings are dragging on much later than they normally are. So I guess I would be concerned that number one, which ones are we choosing? Number two, who's choosing them? And number three, how are we recognizing them in the most expeditious and easy manner?
Do nothing but party all day. That same month is disability month.
There is the CDE does recommend multiple, so if I just pulled up June, there's 4 different months, or 4 different Fireworks Safety Month, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Pride Month, National Fresh Fruit Vegetable Month, National Safety Month, and that's all in June. So the hard thing is these are important because that's why they're months. So I would have a hard time asking. I want some criteria before we went to CNI and created a group and say choose ones. So I would want some direction on that. And then I think the other critical piece, sorry Kelly, on that is how. You know,
Yes,
is
that was
it
my
like
question. How
a
do you
resolution,
want
is it an
to
item,
spell
is it
it?
an item just says, hey, the board, you know, votes to recognize these months, so that there's some things that need to play out.
Or does it just go out in the superintendent's report to families?
It could, I just don't know what the intent, if the
I'm
intent
not
is for the board to want to, as a, yes, these are important, which I know you all think they are. We just need some clarity around that, and perhaps we can kind of think through, I could look some other districts, how they do it, I could talk with other folks to see how they do it. I mean, I'm happy to do a little research
That's
to
also
figure
the
out.
American Disabilities.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, then that was just June. Every month has multiple months are named different things. And so I would want some criteria, whether it's, you know, related to marginalized groups or is it
Well,
related
that's a
to
light
fireworks
month
safety?
though, Scott, if you look through those, some of those have a whole lot more than that.
Mr. Bruno, I heard you trying to make a comment a moment ago. Did you have something to add?
Sorry, I was mostly trying to fix my Wi-Fi. I am now connected to a hotspot. Hopefully that will help. I just wanted to clarify what we were going to do here, and I think Superintendent Lair was kind of going down the same road. What do we want to do to, you know, as the agendized action?
So I would move that assuming we have a curriculum committee, take a look at the recommended dates from our California Department of Education and decide which items will be highlighted and bring it to us for approval. I know, you know, for example, there's things that aren't national holidays, but, you know, they are in our Constitution, and, you know, Constitution and Citizenship Day, big one. Constitution Week, we should be talking about that in our schools during that week. So we should be seeing it on the calendar. I should be seeing it in, you know, in the curriculum website somewhere recognized, not just silence on the matter. So I'm making a motion that the curriculum committee, you know, convene and look at these different celebrations that are recommended by the California Department of Ed and bring those items to us, making the decision. They know our school sites and, you know, the needs that are there the best.
I agree, they would be the best department to do this, I do agree with you. But curriculum instruction are so busy that I would hate to throw something else to them right now. Especially since we're still in a pandemic and they have a lot of things to deal with in regards to that. So would you be opposed to postponing or tabling this until later on when they have a few more minutes in their day to be able to accurately look at this and give it some thought, as opposed to pushing it on them right now? And I'm not gonna say half-heartedly, but half-heartedly because they don't have time.
Yeah, maybe we could set a timeline for them to bring this back to us, because I think that not acting on inclusiveness and diversity is not okay. And that's kind of the position where we've been for a long time in our district. I think we need to act, and waiting another day or another year to act on inclusiveness and diversity is something that I have a lot of questions about. There's always going to be something that's taking up our time and, you know, that we need to tend to. So maybe setting up a timeline, you know, for that committee to get back to us. Obviously, this isn't a top priority item, but it is a very important item that I don't think that we need to just be driving in neutral as we have been about.
No, I agree, it is very important, but as Ms. Kelly had stated, which ones do we pick? Because if we pick some and we don't pick the other, then, you know, we get into a little bit of, you know, trouble. Would you be opposed to postponing it? And I know you're not gonna like this, but I'm gonna ask anyway to the end of the year. And then, as you normally do in your org report, you say what's on the monthly calendar. Would you be opposed to that? Because they are so bogged down right now with other things that they have. And not saying that these are not a priority, but the students in our district and their quality of education are.
Exactly, and this is directly related to that, being more inclusive and recognizing marginalized and minoritized groups. That's what this item's about. So I would be comfortable, Scott, how often does the curriculum committee meet? I'm just curious on that. Is it monthly?
Usually a couple weeks or a couple times a month.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, let's move on just a little bit, okay? Mrs. Anderson has a question, and then I was hoping that maybe Mr. Jordan might have some thoughts on this as well, since we are asking him, since we're asking him to.
We have a few teachers in the room. If you care to comment, if you would like to add anywhere from
better I
10
don't say anything right now.
Yeah.
between 10 and 24 holidays a month to your schedule, would you have time to celebrate all of those?
I'd rather not comment right now.
No, but if there are specific
It's
ones that
ridiculous.
the
There's
CDE
no way.
recommends, maybe we can, I don't know.
Yes.
My biggest can do it. You can't recognize everybody.
My
Sorry.
biggest concern is when we make a statement like that, we exclude a lot of people. When we celebrate one organization or one gender or one race, we exclude.
You're not gonna
25
recognize the
others.
homeless kid that you're leaving out because you're recognizing everybody else.
So I
Doesn't
think
work.
one of the defaults, and Mr. Jordan says, we certainly could take this up, find out from our counterparts in other districts how they deal with it. The simplest thing would be each month to bring back all of the CDE recommended ones, show that there's no way that the teachers are going to be able to teach each of these, but I think if it's brought to the forefront is what's being asked, not.
We love everybody. We always have in this district because it was a military district. The kids got along with everybody. They learned that early.
Okay, Mr. Jordan, do you have any thoughts on this?
Don't put him on the spot.
As Mr. Lair was saying earlier, we want direction on that. We do have curriculum committees. We don't have one curriculum committee that does everything. Each adoption comes up with a different curriculum committee for that. So I want to make sure that that's clear. There isn't one that continues on. We do have curriculum instruction meetings, twice a week with curriculum instruction staff. That right now does not include teaching staff or classified staff on there. That's more of our internal mechanism for meeting times. As long as we had clear recommendation or clear guidance, what exactly you're looking for, what that would mean in terms of the recognition. I don't think there's time in the teachers' schedules to do 5 or 6 different recognitions in a month and try and do lessons around that. I don't think that's realistic. If that's what we're asking for. If we're saying there's going to be a board resolution that we're recognizing that, I think that's doable. I think it's doable to put it on the calendars. I think it's doable to put it in newsletters, those kind of things.
And doable to just say, hey, these are the items that the CDE is recommending this week, if you'd like to
We could absolutely do that.
do something around this.
But again, I want to be clear, if we're saying we want to do, a week of the month of each one of these things that we're recognizing, I don't think that's doable. That makes sense?
That does make sense. And if the superintendent, he did offer earlier to look at what other districts are doing, because this isn't a novel suggestion. This takes place in districts throughout our state. That's, why this list is established by the CDE. So if you could look into what are other local districts doing, to recognize these recommended, activities, what do they do? What's the extent of the activity? That would be very informative for us as a board, so that we're not dealing with hypotheticals and, oh, that would be too much and this and that. And we don't even know what we're talking about because we don't have a baseline to see what others are doing.
And if we provide options, because I know certain districts don't do anything. Certain districts, every board meeting, they'll do resolutions for different months. I don't know how they pick the months. There are other ones that will recognize, there's Nurses Day, there's all these things. So we would want to bring that group back because obviously the CNI group's not going to want to create a recommendation and the board's like, no, we don't,
No, we don't like that.
So I think one of the things is what we can do is a little research around it, come back and then give you guys a little more guidance on how we have it. I know Mr. Jordan and I don't want to put on his plate, he and I can figure it out. We can make contacts and just see how it is. I do know a lot of boards do resolutions for it. They don't do all of them, but they do them.
Great, so the direction that we're gonna, go ahead, Mr. Bruno.
So I have a few more thoughts on this. First of all, as far as doing something curriculum-wise where teachers are going to be teaching things in the classroom, that goes beyond my comfort level of trying to tell the teachers how to teach. You know, I don't want to shake things up on them on short notice. But doing things like putting it on a calendar, putting it in bulletin, things like that, to make sure they're aware so that they can think of how that they might tie it into their lesson plans. I think that costs us almost nothing. And by using the list from the CDE, we're not really putting ourselves on the hook for, well, why didn't you include us? Because we're using the official list from the CDE. And as far as when you include some people, you're excluding other people. I noticed this back in the 90s when I was in high school. We tend to celebrate European history. I took an art history class where we spent 90% of the class talking about European art, spent about 2 weeks talking about Asian art, and literally skipped the chapters on African art. So already we are celebrating some and excluding others, and this is an attempt to course correct. It's not going to be perfect, but we can do a lot better than what our society has been doing. And I honestly, I saw this on the agenda, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm not sure exactly how to implement it, but I am excited about the concept.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. Bruno. So at this point, I think what we want to do is provide direction to the superintendent and Mr. Jordan that we would like them to check and see what other districts are doing and provide us some options. Is everyone good with that? Great.
I think that's great.
Moving on, before we start our advanced planning, I just wanted to say thank you to our guests who have really stuck it out with us tonight. It's been a rather long-winded meeting, and we appreciate you being able to listen and participate in the meeting. We're moving on to item number 16, advanced planning, our future meeting dates. The regular board meeting, as mentioned previously, has been moved to Wednesday, September 22nd here in this room. Do we have any suggested agenda items? Hearing none. The only thing that I'm concerned with right now is that we take our next step as far as new beginnings. We were going to talk about building our board booklet or board handbook.
Yes.
Handbook, board handbook.
Do we
So
need to talk about the Christmas meeting? At that meeting? Is that on the agenda?
Chris, I'm not.
Are we going to be gone at the Christmas meeting or something for CSCA?
Usually we either move it around to the first of the month or.
Oh, but remember, we're meeting once a month now, so the CSBA is actually December 2nd, I believe, so it won't conflict with our meetings.
Okay. How about the trip? Is there going to be stuff to?
The CSBA is, remember, we used to rotate because we would meet the first and third Wednesdays of the month, and now we meet just the third Wednesday. The CSBA conference is always the first part of December, so there is no conflict for that time frame that people would be attending that
No, I
conference.
mean, is there anything we're going to need to put on the agenda for the trip?
Oh, no, I don't think so. We've
No.
not
Okay.
agendas before we just registered. That's that.
Yeah. There's no.
Okay.
It's not a formal meeting. It's a learning experience. It's education.
Okay.
And not sure it's going to happen, to be quite honest, with how things are going.
Oh, yeah, because we're coming back on.
Moving on to item number 17, continuation of closed session. The board will not continue in closed session. We have a motion for item number 18.
So moved.
Thank you. This is Dr. Lee and Mrs. Anderson. Well, didn't hear each other, so pick one for the motion, one for second, and we are adjourned.
All right. Good night. Good night, Steve.
Good night.
Good night, Dr. Lee.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.